SolidWorks is the world leader in 3D solid modeling software. SolidWorks is both a history and feature-based parametric modeling program. The software uses a simple set of tools and commands to help you design parts, assemblies, and drawings. Now on your screen here, you should see something that looks a lot like this icon here. It's called SolidWorks, and go ahead and just double click on that and let SolidWorks open up. If you have not activated your software yet, now's a great time to do that. Otherwise, just click on this little radio button here to do it later. All right, let SolidWorks open up, and you should see a screen a lot like this one here. It's going to show you the home screen, and the home screen is going to give you a bunch of information here. I've got my home, I've got recent, I've got learn, and I have alerts. All these things show up at the very top. Directly below that is the ability to start a new part, assembly, or drawing. I can also switch over to the advanced mode or just basically open a document. It's also going to show me the recent documents, or if you want to see more, click on View All. Down here is the recent folders you may have been working in, or some different resources. So a whole bunch of different things you can do here in the home screen. If you click anywhere else besides the home screen, it's just going to go away. But if you miss that home screen, you can go over here and click on the home screen one more time, and it's going to pop right back up. Okay. Now, if you want to get started, we can choose one of these part assembly or drawings, or you can switch over to the advanced mode, which is going to give you the option of all the available templates you happen to have loaded into your system. If that's feeling a little bit too complicated to get started with, get rid of that, say cancel. I don't want to do any of those things. And I'm just going to go up here and click on new, and that's the novice toolbar. I can switch between the two, between advanced right over here and novice just by that, and go ahead and just choose the part, click on OK, and let SolidWorks open up the part environment. Now, SolidWorks will change the environment a little bit based upon which mode you're in, right? So this is the part mode environment. We're also going to have an assembly mode environment, and finally a drawing mode environment. And the only major change there is going to be this thing called the ribbon bar at the very top. But let me start at the upper left-hand corner of the screen here and kind of explain what all these things are you're looking at. So right over here is a very familiar menu called File, Edit, View, and so on. And if you don't see that popping out like that, you can just click on this little pin here to show the rest of these little icons here. But you get some things like, open, new, things like that, save, print, all that kind of stuff in your file menus. These are all pretty standard for most programs. Directly past that is going to be the welcome screen or home screen. New, open, save, print, and so on. Undo, redo, and then rebuild. So if you do something and you need to rebuild it in software, you can do that. Right over here is going to be your file properties, and finally your system options, where you have a bunch of things you can change for SolidWorks. Directly below that is our friend, the ribbon bar. Okay, so notice you got these little tabs. If you click on the tab, the ribbon will change to whatever tools are in that ribbon bar, right? Now we can turn these on or off. SolidWorks is configurable, right? I can drag and drop tools into any one of these ribbon bars. I can turn them on, I can turn them off. So if your installation doesn't look exactly like mine, that's because it's configurable, right? But if I right click over here on any one of those tabs, I can see what individual tabs I can turn on or off right over here. Same thing with toolbars. I can turn them on or off over here. And down here, I can actually even customize the entire environment. So any choice you want, you can change if you want large icons or small icons, so on. And if you want a new toolbar, like say, hey, I want to work on sheet metal, I can click on that and the sheet metal tab will show up right over here. So all those tools will be available. Okay, now on the left-hand side here is what's called the Feature Manager. And the Feature Manager also has tabs on top. So here's the basic tab, which is the Feature Manager. And directly to the side of that is the Property Manager, which is pretty much not used very often. Then you've got the configurations, and we'll jump into that later, but you can have different configurations of the same part. After that, another one that's not used very often. And then finally is your appearances. And that one, like I said, you can see what colors and things like that you've assigned to your parts. So you use that one every once in a while. But most of the time, you're going to be in this very first tab here, which is the Feature Manager, right? And inside of there, you've got several things. One, if you have a material, right? You have the front plane, top plane, right plane, and the origin. That's what you start at. So anything you design inside of SolidWorks has to start on one of those planes. So the general rules are you need to choose a face or plane to start drawing a sketch. Then we're going to take that sketch and we're going to extrude it, revolve it, sweep it, or something like that to turn it into a solid body. Well, when you are first starting out, there's really no other faces to work with, so you have to choose one of these planes. These are the fundamental planes to start with. Everything's going to start there, and I'm going to show you that in a second. Up here at the top of the screen, you've got a few other things like zoom to fit and zoom to area and stuff like that, but that's not going to make a lot of sense if we don't have something here on the screen to actually look at. So let's go ahead and try that out. So right over here is the front plane. Here's the top plane. Let's try the top plane. Click on the top plane, and now I have the option of starting a sketch. Right here is sketch, or if you're feeling fancy, come to the top of the screen, click on sketch right there. Notice the plane revolved around, so you're looking straight at that plane here. And I'm going to show you a very simple thing called a rectangle. Here it is. The corner rectangle, let's just drag out a rectangle right there in the center of my screen. And I'm going to just snap the corner of the rectangle right there to the origin. Notice those lines turn black. We're going to be learning all about this as we go through the course. But for right now, I'm just going to create this into a feature. So extruded boss or base, click on that. It's going to turn into a block. There it is. Drag it up. You can type in the size if you like, let's say 2.5, click OK, and there is our first block. Okay, so now that I have a block on the screen, I can explain the rest of these little things up here at the top. The first one is zoom to fit. So if this thing's really small and it's hiding way over here on the side, I can click on zoom to fit. It's going to bring it right in here. If I want to zoom into a specific area, I can come over here and drag out. So by left clicking, drag into a certain area, it's going to zoom into where I drag that box into. If you don't like that, you can of course just go back to the last view. Bam. What if you want to see what's going on inside here? You can slice this thing in half and section through this model and see what's in there, and guess what, there's really nothing in there. So it's really not that exciting when you only have a block, but if you have something more complicated or an assembly, you can easily see what's inside using section view. All right, next one is going to be view orientation, and that's going to allow us to see any of these standard views over here, normal to, or you can use this little view cube here, and it's going to give you a preview of what it's going to look like, and you can choose any one of these surfaces to look directly at that surface. Okay. Next one is, how do we want to look at this model? Right now, we have this one that's in a shaded mode, and it's shaded with edges. You can also just do shaded, or you can come down here and do something like hidden lines removed, right? So now you can see the block, but there's no shading or color, right? How about if I want to see through the block with some little dashed lines? That works too. Or you can go straight wireframe and see kind of everything going on here in the screen. Now, I pretty much never use this mode. I pretty much love to stay in shaded mode over here, but these modes are very helpful if you're trying to figure out something that's going on. So you might want to toggle over to a wireframe mode or something like that and see if there's something inside your part that you're missing or something like that. It just makes it a very simple view so you can understand a lot of the complexity of a more detailed part. All right, after that one, I've got the view mode. So I can show and hide different things in my window here. So if I want to see planes or temporary planes, axes, and any of these things, you can turn or toggle them on or off. If I click on show hide primary planes, like they'll just show up over here, and here they are. I can then, of course, if you don't want to see those, just turn them back off, right? So a bunch of options there. The next one is going to be edit appearance, right? So I'm going to switch over here back to the shaded mode and then come over to edit appearance, and you might be saying, hey, I'd really love the top of this block to be something like red. So I'm going to choose, and notice the entire block turned red. Well, that's because I have the top of the entire part selected over here. Well, if I delete that out of there and I come over here and I just want to choose a surface and I say, hey, I just want that top surface to be red. That's how you do it, right? Click over here, click OK. Right, next one is going to be the scene, right? What's the background, right? So I've got a 3-point faded. I also have plain white, a whole bunch of different options. So you can just toggle through these different things. You can even work on a rooftop if you wanted to. Whatever you want, there's a whole bunch more favorites you can add as well. All right, so those are your basic view modes. And then the last one here is going to be your view settings, right? So I can turn on like real view graphics, and that's going to show this at a little bit fancier resolution. And you can turn on shaded mode and ambient occlusion. You can start turning all these things on. It starts making it look very fancy. But keep in mind, as you do and add all these things into your model, it also makes SolidWorks work harder to display your block with all these fancy things on there. So if you're making just a block like this, you can get crazy with that. But if you have an assembly that has hundreds of thousands of components, you might want to turn this off because it's going to slow SolidWorks down. Okay, most of the time I turn all these things off while I'm working, unless I want to do like a presentation or take some screen capture of my actual part and put it in a presentation. They all just slow things down, so just generally turn them off. Okay, now we'll be jumping into learning about all the tools in the ribbon bars throughout the course. But over here on the right-hand side is a few other things I want to point out while we're here. The first one is if you click on it, it just kind of flies out. It's a fly-out bar. So here's the welcome to SolidWorks. These are some of the resources you have. Directly below that is going to be your design library. This is where you can store information. Things like parts or annotations, things like that. They're available here. And if you're like working on a drawing, you can drag these notes into your drawings. If you're working with assemblies, you can bring in like a whole mold base. You know, you can just click on this thing and bring in an entire mold base. You can also have features, forming tools, parts, routing, whatever you want. They can all be over here. in your design library. You can use the default library, or you can create your own and add your own components. Directly below that's going to be the toolbox, and SolidWorks has got a preloaded library of toolbox components, which includes fasteners and screws and nuts and washers and bearings and everything else you can think of, and you can just drag and drop them into your assembly. Below that is 3D Content Central, so a lot of manufacturers make 3D CAD files available to you for free. So instead of designing them all yourself, especially if you're working with an off-the-shelf component, download it, right? And put it into your assembly. It's going to save you a lot of time. Same thing with the 3D Components Part Supply is another supplier of components that you can just drag and drop into your models. Directly below that is just another way to get to your file explorer so you can see what's open in SolidWorks and so on. They'll show up over here. Below that is appearances, right? So I can apply materials and backgrounds to my part. Right over here, I can say, hey, I want to make this thing plastic. I want a medium gloss plastic. And you can just drag and drop that over into your part and say, hey, I want to apply that to the entire part. And now that appearance has been added to that part, okay? Keep in mind, there's also material over on this side here. And if you apply a material here, not only does it give you the material properties added to this, but it also grabs the appearance. So two things you can do there. And then the last thing over here is going to be custom properties, which we'll be jumping into later. So anyways, hopefully that gives you a good overview of exactly what tools are available, at least the locations of them. I know you obviously have a lot of questions, and we're going to be diving into all these little sections as we go through the course, and you'll be learning and using these tools as we go through the course. But at least now you know basically where all these things are.